Ladies and gentlemen, it is absolutely, indeed, a great pleasure for me to introduce our keynote speaker for the Honors Convocation this morning. Professor MK Asante is a best-selling author, award-winning filmmaker, recording artist, a distinguished professor who the Los Angeles Times calls one of America's best storytellers. He is the author of 4 books, including Buck, a memoir, which was praised by the late Maya Angelou as, quote, a story of surviving and thriving with passion, compassion, wit, and style. Buck is a multi-year Washington Post bestseller and the recipient of numerous literary awards. And Buck is currently being adapted into a major motion picture. Professor Asante studied at SOAS, the University of London. He earned a BA from Lafayette College and an MFA from UCLA School of Theater, Film, and Television. He is the founder, CEO of Wonderful Sound Studios, and he premiered and performed his latest single, We the Eagles, on ESPN's Monday Night Football this past year. Professor Asante has lectured, literally, at hundreds of universities across the United States and across the world. He has lectured at Harvard, Yale, Stanford, you name it, he has been there. He has toured in over 50 countries. He is featured in A Changing America, a permanent video exhibit at the National Museum of African American History and Culture. Professor MK Asante has been featured on NBC's Today Show, The Breakfast Club, hailed by CNN as, quote, a master storyteller and a major creative force. He has published essays in the New York Times, USA Today. His inspirational story, The Blank Page, is featured in the #1 New York Times bestseller, Chicken Soup for the Soul. Professor Asante is the executive producer and host of Snapchat original shows, Wild Black with MK Asante, and Free Tuition with MK Asante. I need to go and watch these programs, by the way, especially the Free Tuition one, as I'm sure my students will be watching as well. But, you know, while Black is a Critics' Choice Real TV nominee, it has 17 million viewers. And so he has grown this particular platform from 4 million viewers to 17 million viewers this year. Professor Asante is a distinguished visiting professor at the Micah Business School in India, and of course is a tenured professor here at Morgan State University in the Department of English. Ladies and gentlemen, I could go on, but fellow Morganites, please join me in giving a warm, enthusiastic welcome to one of our own, Professor MK Asante.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I'm looking out and I don't see that many people, but I know that you're watching and I see you. I see so many of you. And before I start today, or as I start, I just want to say thank you to President Wilson, who has shown extraordinary leadership. I thank you for your leadership. I thank you for your wisdom. for guiding this university, this national treasure in a time of crisis, and doing it in an amazing way, in a powerful way, for being an example of what leadership looks like. So I want to thank President Wilson for being a pathlight. I use this term pathlight, and you know, along our journey, we all need pathlights. What is a pathlight? A pathlight is illumination. It helps us to get where we're going. And we're all on a journey, and we need these pathlights. And I'll come back to that idea of what a pathlight means, because it's a very powerful idea, and it's been a theme in my life. I want to thank my colleagues at Morgan, administrators, faculty members, people that I work with on a day in and day out basis, extraordinary people who've committed and sacrificed. So thank you to my colleagues, thank you to the administration, thank you to the faculty. And of course, we're here today celebrating extraordinary academic achievement from our Morgan students. I want us all to take, I know we're not in the same place and we can't do a round of applause in the way that we used to, but I want to really give a huge shout out, huge love and celebratory inspiration to all of our Morgan students who are showing exceptional resilience and achieving at the highest level even during the pandemic. So I want to thank all my Morgan students. Thank you. I want to thank all of my students, students that I've had, students that I have right now, Dr. Conway and the amazing band. I mean, the choir is just amazing, even virtually. So we always got to, I mean, everywhere I go, you know, it mentioned that I've been traveling around the world. Well, everywhere I go around the world, people talk about your leadership. Thank you, Dr. Wilson. People talk about President Wilson's leadership. And what else do they talk about? Amongst other things, is definitely our choir. So thanks, Dr. Conway, and everyone in the choir. I also want to thank the provost. Thank you for excellent leadership again. And so I want to just thank everybody. I'm so thankful. I'm so full of thanks because there's a term called Ubuntu. I am because we are. I am because we are. We are all interconnected. Dr. King, right, who I saw on Morgan's page, they have a quote from Dr. King. He says, intelligence, right? Intelligence plus character. That's what education is about, right? And so Ubuntu means I am because we are. We are all connected. We're in a labyrinth of interconnectivity. What affects me affects you, and so we need each other. And so I'm excited to be here. I celebrate my colleagues. I celebrate the students here at Morgan. This is an exceptional place. I've spoken at universities all around the world, almost in every continent. Many, many different countries. I've spoken probably in about 30, 40 different countries at universities in those countries. Nothing compares to Morgan State University. There is no university in the world on par with Morgan State University. Its students, leadership, history, vision, where we've been, where we are going. I'm extremely proud to be at Morgan State University. So I just want to start by saying that. I've been guided my entire life. People ask me what inspires me, what drives me, what motivates me. Well, one of the core principles that's inspired me my entire life is a mantra that I came up with years ago. The mantra is always take a sip of water before you get into it. But the mantra that has really been the core driving philosophy for my life, for my work, has been if you make an observation, you have an obligation. The mantra is you have to transform your observations into obligations. You have to transform what you see and observe into action. That's been a driving force. You have to be a part of the solution when you see a problem. When I arrived here this morning at Morgan's campus, I was so thrilled to be here, you know, to be on physical campus, you know, and to be in a building with people. When I arrived here, I was greeted at the door by an amazing woman, a security guard who's represented security at Morgan, who's represented stability at Morgan, who's represented peace at Morgan. I was greeted by Miss Ellerby, who is a student at Morgan. She's also a security guard at Morgan, and she's been in many of my classes. And Miss Ellerby, I'll tell you an amazing story, how this all connects. One of my pathlights was Dr. Maya Angelou. Now, I know there's some freshmen and sophomore here, and I just want to make sure. I think we all know who Dr. Maya Angelou is, but Dr. Maya Angelou was one of our greatest writers in American history, a great visionary, pioneering filmmaker. She was the first woman admitted to the DGA. She was a producer. She was an artist. She was an activist who was friends with Malcolm X, friends with Dr. King, friends with James Baldwin. She knew Langston Hughes. She was an amazing woman. She was the first female cable car conductor in San Francisco, among other things. She had survived a life of trauma and pain only to use it as inspiration and fuel to become one of the greatest, most inspirational literary figures we've ever known. And so I was fortunate, I was honored to be making a movie with Dr. Maya Angelou. This is before, well, this was right around the time I joined the faculty at Morgan. And I hadn't really been on campus yet. I didn't know a lot of people. And I knew this building was so beautiful. When I came to Morgan and I saw this building, I said, this is a beautiful building. We got to shoot something in here. I'm a filmmaker, so I was like, we have to do something in here with film. And so there's a Morgan professor who is an exceptional professor, an amazing, renowned professor who I knew about even before I came to Morgan State University. His name is Dr. Raymond Winbush. And he writes about black boys, and he writes about history and our people and our culture. And I was interviewing Dr. Raymond Winbush, and I said, let's do it in the Murphy Fine Arts Building. And I didn't know anyone yet, so we just met in here, and I set up, and then someone said, what you doing? And, you know, I said, well, I'm just making this little thing. And she said, well, no, you gotta, you know, there's a protocol here. You can't just be walking in and shooting anything you want. And she said, I'm Miss Ellerby, and we met. That was the first time we met. And she made sure that I followed the protocol, did things the right way, went through the right channels. And then we did end up filming in here. We shot a beautiful scene in here with Dr. Raymond Winbush. Dr. Angelou loved the scene. Everyone loved it. And so that's how I met Miss Ellerby. But then years later, Miss Ellerby's in my documentary film class. So the first time I meet her, I'm making a film with Dr. Maya Angelou. She stops me to make sure that I got everything in order, right? And it was beautiful because that's how it has to be. Right? People just can't do anything. There has to be order. There has to be protocol. And so she made sure of that. But years later, she was in my class, and she made a documentary. And I told you my mantra, my driving principle, philosophy in life is if you make an observation, you have an obligation. Miss Ellerby, in my documentary film class, she makes a documentary where she says to me in class, she says, if you see something, do something. And I said, you know, that is so profound because that's what I've been saying with transforming observations into obligations, right? To see something is to observe, right? And then she said, do something, right? That's the obligation. So observation, obligation, Miss Ellerby had it all along, right? You see something, do something. And when we were shooting in here, that's what she did. So I thank you, Miss Ellerby, for introducing yourself to me, for being in my classes, and for teaching me. So thank you, because as a professor, oftentimes you're being, you know, I mean, that's really, I think the secret to being a professor is that you're learning all the time. It's just, nonstop learning. Okay, so if you transform an observation into an obligation, what is that doing? Well, what it's doing is, number one, it's, as we said, it's being a part of the solution, but beyond that, it's honoring, right? We're here today to honor you, the students. The amazing, there's over 2,000 students on the honor roll. That's unheard of. Thousands of students on the honor roll. That's unheard of. Breaking all types of records and setting new precedents. This is amazing, and this needs to be celebrated. And so it's important to understand that when you transform an observation into an obligation, you're honoring the best of who we are. You're honoring our legacy. You're honoring our history, our traditions. You're honoring our educators who transformed observations into obligations. This is how we got here at Morgan, right? At Fayetteville State, at Lincoln, at Tuskegee, at Howard. This is how we got here, by transforming observations into obligations. People who saw something, they saw that there was a problem, and they became a part of the solution. That's our history. That's our history in this country, our ancestors. Harriet Tubman made an observation. What was her observation? Well, her people were in bondage. So she risked her life and her livelihood to get her people free, right? That's her obligation. Paul Robeson, one of my inspirations, we were just talking backstage about being multilingual as an artist, being able to speak the language of poetry and the language of fiction and the language of film and the language of music and all these different languages. Well, Paul Robeson spoke in all of these languages. His parents were born into slavery. Yet, Paul Robeson was a scholar, a poet. The man sang in over 20 languages, spoke and read over 15 languages, made the connection between America and the diaspora and the continent, the Pan-African connection, was an activist, was the most famous singer and musician and actor of his time, who at the height of his talent, at the height of his success, said, I will not sing anymore unless it's about freedom, unless it's about my people. That's what we do when we honor. We honor the best of our tradition. We honor our legacy. That's what Morgan State is about. That's what this convocation is about. It's about honoring the best of who we are and who we can be. That mantra is how I ended up meeting Dr. Angelou. I want to share a story that she shared with me that inspired me and I know will inspire you. The last time I saw Dr. Angelou, she passed away. This is right before she passed away. The last time I saw Dr. Angelou, and like I said, this observation obligation has been driving everything, right? And so with me and Dr. Angelou, we made an observation. The observation was that we needed to make a film that was going to celebrate the Black experience in a very particular way and use Kwanzaa as a prism and a vehicle to do it. And so that's the film that we wanted to make. When I made my observation to her, she said, we have to make this film. I said, this was my observation? She said, we must make it. That was her answer. If you observe something, we must do something about it. And the action was to make this film. And so we made this film, and as we were making this film, I got a chance to spend a lot of time with her. And during that time, I was writing my book. I was writing a book called Buck. And later on, I would have a lot of struggles with that book. You know, even with all the success of the film, I felt as though I wasn't equipped to write the book. I didn't feel confident. I didn't have my ginga about the book. I didn't think that I could do it and pull it off. And I was feeling very nervous and scared about it. And I found myself in Winston-Salem, North Carolina at Dr. Angelou's house. I was actually speaking at Wake Forest University that day. And Dr. Angelou sought me out. I was on the campus of Wake Forest, and somebody who I didn't know came up to me and said, "You MK?" I said, "Yeah." Dr. Angelou wants to see you. So I go to Dr. Angelou's house, and that was the last time I saw her in person. And it was an an amazing visit. She's told me 3 things that visit that really stuck with me, and I want to share with you. When I thought about Honors Convocation and how we honor, and what does honor mean, and who do we honor, I thought that there was no better way to honor this moment and to honor you by talking about the people who are honorable, the people who we honor, the people, there's a proverb in Ghana, and I know we have a strong African connection here at this campus, but also to Ghana. There's a proverb, in Ghana that says, if I stand tall, it's because I stand on the shoulders of my ancestors, on those that came before me, right? And so Dr. Angelou that day, I asked her, I said, I'm struggling with my voice. I need to know how to get over this hump with my voice and projecting myself into the world. And she told me 3 things. She said, 1, she said, MK, and she was quoting the poet Terrence here. She said, MK, you are a human being. Nothing human is alien to you. Nothing human is alien to you, MK. Nothing human is alien to you either. You belong in any environment, in any situation. Don't ever go into an environment and feel that you don't belong there, that you're not good enough, that your voice isn't loud enough or strong enough. You belong everywhere. If it's human, it ain't alien to you. You know it. You belong. Be confident in who you are, in whose you are, and where you stand. That's what she said. She said, you're a human being, nothing human is alien to you. The second thing she told me was, use your voice in the spirit of truth, in the service of truth. Use your voice in the spirit and service of truth. She said, when you do that, because at the time, I was struggling with a book. I felt like I was struggling with a memoir, a book about my life. I felt like a little boy lost. I felt like nobody was going to read this. And I was scared. And she said, use your voice in the service of truth. If you do that, she told me, this is her word. She said, it will connect with someone in India, Iowa, Idaho. She was just naming random places. Lo and behold, I write this book, I do what she says, and next thing you know, I'm in India. I'm in Idaho. I'm in places that I've never been before because I use my voice in the spirit of truth. So I would say the same thing to you. Use your voice and your gifts in the spirit of truth, in the service of truth. She said when you do that, it connects with everybody. People who you don't even know, people who you thought would never be connected to, because the truth is universal. And she said, focus on the emotional truth, how people feel. The last thing Dr. Angelou said to me that day is she said, I was on my way out. Like I said, I was speaking at Wake Forest University, which is not far from her house. And she said, do you know what charisma is? And I said, well, I was kind of thinking the Webster's definition. But she said, let me tell you what charisma is. She says, when you walk in to a room, you're going to walk in with every piece of art that's ever inspired you. You're going to walk into that room with every color that has ever made an imprint on you. You're going to walk into that room with every hand that has been laid on you in a kind way. You're going to walk into that room with your grandma's hands. You're going to walk into that room with the spirit of your great-grandfather, right? You're going to walk into that room with poetry. It might be Gwendolyn Brooks's poetry, right? You might walk into that room with a Gwendolyn Brooks quote. Courage isn't the absence of fear, but the recognition that some things are greater than our own fear. So you walk into the room with that, right? You might walk into the room with positive thoughts about where you come from. You might walk into the room with a smile that you remember. You know, I imagine Dr. Angelou walking around with the smile that Langston gave her when she met him in California. So you walk into the room with all that. You bring everybody, she said. Bring them all. She said, you do that and people say you have charisma. So she said, MK, you're speaking at Wake Forest tonight. I said, yes, Auntie Maya, I'm speaking at Wake Forest. She said, I can't make it, but promise to bring me with you. And I said, of course. And it didn't even hit me what she was really saying until later, right? But this idea of bringing me with you, bringing it. So when I thought about that and I was thinking about this conversation that I wanted to have today, I said, that is the best way we can honor our ancestors, our past, our community, our culture, our education, is to bring it with us, to carry it with us wherever we go. And that's what we do when we say we're growing the future. We are bringing all of that. So when you go, when you leave Morgan, when you're at Morgan, when you leave Morgan to go somewhere else and start your career, you bring all of that with you. You bring those kind words. You bring those ancestors, those heroes and sheroes. You bring the heroes and sheroes that came from right here. You bring the Zora Neale Hurstons who walked on this campus at Morgan State University. You bring the Dr. Benjamin Quarles. You bring them with you. You bring Nipsey Hussle. You bring Chadwick Boseman. You bring Maya Angelou. You bring them all. That's your energy. That's your power. That's who you are. That's how you honor who we are, and that's how you honor yourself. I just want to leave you with one other message. I know there's a lot of freshmen and sophomores watching this, and this is something that is advice for continued excellence, because I am so impressed with all of the Morgan students. You know, there's another African proverb. I love proverbs, and there's a lot of beautiful proverbs in Africa. One of the proverbs I love in Africa says, great sailors are not made on smooth seas. So when I look at the Morgan students right now, when you tell me that thousands of you are on the honor roll right now, thousands. I mean, that's mind-blowing. But in the midst of this kind of adversity, no one's ever had to deal with this before. I haven't. My father had. My father was born in 1942 in Valdosta, Georgia, one of 16 children. Became an educator. He said he's never has seen anything like this before. Okay? So what you're dealing with is unprecedented. No one's ever had to deal with it before in the way that you're dealing with it, and you're handling it with grace. Maya Angelou told me that soul is the graceful survival against impossible circumstances. And y'all have soul. You are doing it gracefully and powerfully. I'm inspired by you. And so what I would leave to you is what I go by. My other words of some words of wisdom that I like to use to carry me and inspire me and kind of keep me on track. Because you've already displayed excellence, and now you have to continue. In order to do that, we have to eliminate distractions, create positive energy, fear absolutely nothing, and attack your opportunities. Thank you so much, Morgan State, and God bless you all. Peace.